Hello, and welcome to the Knowing Your Numbers for Real Estate Investors video. This is compliments of REIKnowledge.com, knowledge from the trenches. In real estate, it's more than just numbers, it's money. And profits are more welcomed when they're expected, not a surprise. Before we go any further, we want to mention our supporters. Uh, BusinessMasters.com is an awesome website to be able to go to and establish your own do-it-yourself website, which would include, of course, your domain, your emails, and all your necessary pages, but also shopping carts, webinar builders, video builders, sales funnel builders, autoresponders, tons of tools, one low monthly cost. Kicks the butt of Wix or Weebly or GoDaddy, any of those other do-it-yourselves. So check out Business Masters. That's BIZNESSMASTERS.com. Are you a passive real estate investor? Do you like getting returns, not getting your hands dirty? Are you an accredited investor? Then you should probably reach out to our friends over at PPRNoteCode.com. They've been buying and selling mortgage notes for a couple decades. They're experts at it. They use accredited investor money to accomplish it, and you can get good passive returns, once again, with keeping your hands clean. And do you need money for your deals? Every deal needs money. The question is, are you willing to go grab it? Well, in this case, they'll actually come to you. If you go to fundingforproperties.com, that's funding, the number 4, properties.com, complete the form that matches up with the type of funding you need, whether it's rehab, uh, rental financing, multifamily financing. Complete the form, no obligation, no cost, no credit check, and you will have lenders contacting you. Do you have a product or service that our readers could benefit from? Please reach out to us at hello@fuel for business. That's hello at fuel, F-U-E-L, the number 4, business, BIZNESS.com, and share with us what your product or service is that our readers would like to know about. Now, let's get back to knowing our numbers. Every business has numbers. Every business has numbers tied to it. It could be cost of goods, cost of storage, the sales price, the transportation cost, cost of labor, equipment, etc. Do you think real estate investing has numbers tied to it? Absolutely. What kind of numbers? Property purchase, rehab improvements, rental income, monthly expenses, mortgage payments, ARV, closing costs, carrying costs, insurance, utilities, and more. Let's take a look at a flip, an example of a flip, and see what the numbers are. Now we're going to start working backwards. We're going to start with the ARV. In this case, is 200K. So that's one of our numbers. Then our cost of goods, or excuse me, cost of sale of getting rid of this property is about 7%. We have to pay a realtor's commission. We have to pay bring to dates of water, sewer for the time that we've owned it, and taxes perhaps. And then we have carrying costs for the time we held it. We have utilities, insurance, permit costs. We have rehab cost of $45,000. Since it was financing used on this project, we have a financing cost, closing costs from whenever we purchased it. Can't forget about that. And then, of course, what we call the OOPS cost, which is unforeseens or contingency in the rehab. That's typically, a safe guess, around 10% of the rehab. In this case, we have a profit built in as one of our costs of 34K, which means the maximum that this property could be purchased for if it needed 45,000 in rehab, or actually about 50 with the contingency, and could resell for 200 afterwards. The maximum we could afford to pay for this particular property would be 80K. So in working backwards, we've learned what number applies to what percentage applies to what, and we've learned that this working backwards will allow you to use this formula to be able to figure out what the maximum purchase price should be. Now, some investors will actually tie percentages to the numbers. An example of that could be, they might say the purchase and rehab combined together should not exceed 65 to 70% of the ARV. The purpose for that is because they want to make sure that they have a profit if they're exiting as a flip, or they have room to do a cash out refi if they're holding the property and get the majority and maybe all of their money back on the refi. They've also figured out that the profit needs to be at least 20% of their ARV, especially if they're using their own money, because they want to be able to get a nice return on their cash. And then, of course, the contingency is usually about 10% of the rehab. So limiting the cost is a wise move because obviously the lower the cost, the greater the profit. And once again, you want to try to keep everything within line of having more than one exit strategy, either a flip and earn a profit or a cash out refi, recover the cash out of pocket. So for refinancing as an option, the refinancing, even if it's a a residential property, 1 to 4 unit, it would still be considered a commercial loan if it's owned by an LLC. So the loan is actually given to the LLC, and then the members become the additional guarantors on the loan. So if you're doing a cash out refi, depending on the FICO score of the guarantors, you could stretch as far as 75 to 80% if the guidelines allow it and if the FICO score allows it, of the current market value. That's assuming that you've owned the property for at least 6 months. If you've owned it for less than 6 months, then typically, that's called seasoning, by the way, title seasoning. Typically, if you've owned it for less than 6 months, the lender would use, for the value, they would use what you paid for it plus what you rehabbed it, the cost of rehab. If it's been 6 months and a day, they would use the current appraised value on the property. And once again, if you are in need of any type of financing, especially 1 to 4 unit rental properties and or purchase and rehab, just go to funding4properties.com. That's funding, the number 4properties.com. No cost, no credit check, and have lenders reaching out to you to use their money. So knowing your numbers and having more than one exit strategy is a smart thing to do. So if we were flipping the finished product, we would work our numbers backwards, starting with the ARV, and calculate for all the items associated with it, including the profit. We include our profit into the figure as one of the costs. That way it's built in and we know that we're earning it. As long as we stick to that formula, don't overpay on the property, don't overpay on the rehab, and as long as the ARV doesn't change, then it's a given that you're going to make the profit. If you're holding as a finished product, you want to allow yourself equity to be able to do the cash out refi. So ideally, you want to try to refi 70 to 80% of the current value, pay off any existing liens, recoup any money you have, and maybe walk away with a few bucks as well. Whenever you're calculating your rents, you want to use either your lease that you have from your tenant or the market rent, whichever is lower. That's what the lender is going to do. They're going to look at both your income from the lease as well as the market rent, and they're going to take the lower of the two in their calculations. And when you're doing your calculations, if it's in a soft market, meaning that the prices are more on the decline than the incline, then you probably want to back off 5% on your value, because by the time the appraisal comes in, it may have dropped 5% in value, so you're playing it safe. So to recap, knowing your numbers of your business. If you're flipping, you need to know the average property purchase, the rehab improvements, the ARV, the closing costs each way. Whether you're buying or selling, you're going to have closing costs, carrying costs, and of course profit. You need to know these numbers in and out. The more deals you do, the better you'll become accustomed to the numbers, and you'll be able to start figuring out what the average is, what the average rehab is, what the average kitchen renovation is, what the average closing costs are when you buy, what the average exit costs are when you sell, and what your average carrying cost is. So the more you do it, the more you'll learn it, but you need to know your numbers. If you're holding, same applies. You need to know your numbers for rental income, loss of rents percentage, mortgage payments, insurance costs, percentage of income to expenses. So you need to know what your average rental income is going to be. There's several ways you can get that, and you can gain comps. If you have questions on that, feel free to email us. We can point you to a site that will give you an idea of comps on rentals. You want to calculate in loss percentages for rent. You'll learn that over time. You'll learn how many people pay on time and how many people don't. Of course, you want to calculate what your ongoing costs are for expenses of insurance, taxes, and homeowners association, if in fact there is one. And then you want to have a percentage of the income cover all those and not exceed a certain number. And that number is actually what they call a DSCR, debt service coverage ratio of 1.5%. Over time, as you do more rentals, you will learn these numbers, you'll learn the percentages, and you need to know them in and out because that's your business. So do you need more knowledge, more resources, more contacts? Who couldn't, right? Thing is, you can get all that for free. Yes, you can get it for free. All you have to do is go to reiknowledge.com and subscribe. Now, when you subscribe, you hit the subscription button, you're going to get sent a confirmation email because we have to stay spam compliant. That confirmation email could take up to 24 hours to arrive in your email inbox. It could go in your box. It could go in your spam folder. So you want to check your spam folder occasionally to see if, in fact, that email went in there. Hit confirm, because if you don't confirm the subscription, we can't send out the free newsletter to you. And we want to be able to do that because we want to pass on knowledge, resources, and contacts to you to help your business at no cost. Do you like networking, but hate leaving the house, dealing with traffic, having to deal with everything else, maybe even paying tolls depending on where you're going? How about networking virtually? Each month we have a virtual networking event that you can join. We call it Knowledge and Networking. It's a little bit of a knowledge and a lot of networking on multiple platforms. The networking are nationwide because we have people attending from all over the country and all different types of investors. You can find our group if you go to meetup.com, and then in the search bar, the name of our group you want to look for is reiknowledge.com. Join the group, and then you'll receive notifications or invites for each of the monthly virtual meetings. If you cannot find us at meetup.com, simply send us an email to hello@reiknowledge.com, and we'll send you an invite, and we'll see you at the next meeting.